The rain hammered against the tall windows of Blackwood Manor as Damien stood alone in the grand library, surrounded by fortune yet feeling completely empty. At 32, he had built a technology empire worth billions, owned mansions across 3 continents, and commanded respect from world leaders. Yet tonight, in this ancient mansion he had purchased on impulse, he felt more isolated than ever before. The mansion had belonged to his great-grandfather, a mysterious man who had vanished without explanation decades ago, local legends whispered, about strange lights and otherworldly visitors, but Damien had dismissed such tales as village gossip. Now, standing among dusty books and forgotten memories, he wondered if there might be truth hidden in the shadows of his family's past. Thunder crashed overhead as Damien traced his fingers along the leather spines of ancient books. His phone buzzed constantly with messages from his assistant about board meetings and merger deals, but for once he ignored the digital demands of his empire. Something about this place called to him, as if the very walls held secrets waiting to be discovered. As he pulled a particularly old volume from the shelf, the entire bookcase shuddered. Behind it, a soft blue glow began to seep through the cracks in the wood. Damien's heart raced as he pressed against the bookcase, which swung inward like a hidden door. The glow intensified, revealing a swirling portal of light that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, without hesitation, driven by a curiosity that had made him billions, but also left him searching for something more meaningful than money. Damien stepped through the portal. The world dissolved around him in a cascade of silver light and tinkling sounds like distant bells. He emerged onto a crystalline platform suspended high above a realm that defied all logic and reason. Floating islands drifted through a sky painted in shades of purple and gold, connected by bridges of pure light. Crystal trees grew upside down from the undersides of islands, their branches heavy with fruits that glowed like captured stars. In the distance, majestic creatures with wings of fire soared between the floating land masses. "You should not be here, mortal." The voice was like music, mixed with the sound of wind through chimes. Damien turned to see a young woman approaching him across the crystal platform. Her hair was silver like moonlight, flowing around her shoulders, as if moved by an invisible breeze. Her eyes were the color of violets at twilight, and she wore robes that seemed to be woven from starlight itself. "I'm sorry," Damien stammered, suddenly feeling foolish in his expensive business suit. "I found a portal in my library. I didn't mean to intrude." The woman studied him with those extraordinary violet eyes, and Damien felt as if she could see straight through to his soul. "A portal in your library?" she repeated slowly. "That is impossible. The gateways between our realms have been sealed." For generations, a magnificent creature landed beside them with a sound like thunder. It was a dragon, but unlike any dragon from earthly legends. This one was made of living crystal, its scales reflecting rainbow colors in the eternal twilight of this magical realm. Its eyes held ancient wisdom and a warmth that immediately put Damien at ease. Luna the dragon spoke in a voice that rumbled like distant mountains. "Perhaps this is no coincidence. The prophecies speak of one who would come from the realm of metal and glass when our world faces its darkest hour." Luna, as the dragon had called her, stepped closer to Damien. He caught a scent like blooming night flowers, and felt his heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with the magical surroundings. "What is your name, stranger from the other realm?" "Damien Blackwood," he replied, surprised by how natural it felt to give his real name, instead of one of the many titles and positions that usually defined him. "Blackwood," Luna whispered, her eyes widening. "The prophecy speaks of one whose name carries the essence of the dark wood, the place where 2 worlds touch. Thornwick, could it be?" The crystal dragon, whom Damien now understood was called Thornwick, lowered his great head to study the human more closely. "The timing is suspicious, young guardian. The shadow grows stronger each day, and now a portal opens that has been closed for centuries, bringing us one whose name echoes the ancient words." Damien felt completely lost but strangely exhilarated. "I don't understand any of this. What prophecy? What shadow? And why do I feel like I've been searching for this place my entire life without knowing it?" Luna's expression softened, and she extended her hand toward him. When their fingers touched, Damien felt a jolt of energy that seemed to connect him to every living thing in this magical realm. The sensation was more intense than any business triumph, more fulfilling than any amount of wealth he had accumulated. "Come," Luna said gently. "We'll show you the crystal realm and explain what brings you here. But know this, Damien Blackwood of the other world, nothing will ever be the same for either of us now that you have crossed the threshold." As they walked across bridges of solid light toward Luna's home among the floating islands, Damien felt his phone buzz one final time before the device went completely silent. The technology that had defined his life had no power here, and surprisingly, he felt more alive than he had in years. A small phoenix with feathers like liquid fire landed on Luna's shoulder, regarding Damien with intelligent golden eyes. "Is Zephyr," Luna explained. "He's been my companion since childhood. Zephyr, meet Damien, who may be the key to saving our realm." The phoenix trilled a greeting that sounded like pure joy, and Damien found himself smiling for the first time in months. Whatever lay ahead in this impossible world of floating islands and crystal dragons, he knew his old life of boardrooms and profit margins had come to an end. As they approached a palace that seemed to be carved from a single enormous crystal, Luna turned to him with eyes that held both hope and uncertainty. "Tell me, Damien of the Darkwood, are you prepared to discover that everything you thought you knew about the universe was just the beginning of a far greater story?" Looking into those violet eyes, feeling the warmth of magic flowing through his very bones, Damien nodded without hesitation. The empty billionaire was gone, replaced by a man ready to embrace a destiny he had never imagined possible. The Crystal Palace took Damien's breath away as they approached its towering spires that seemed to reach into the star-filled sky. Each wall was carved from pure crystal that captured and reflected the magical light of the realm, creating rainbows that danced across every surface. Luna led him through corridors filled with floating orbs of light that hummed gentle melodies as they passed. "This is where the Crystal Council meets," Luna explained, her voice echoing softly in the vast hallways. "They are the guardians who protect our realm from the growing darkness that threatens to consume everything we hold dear." As they entered the main council chamber, Damien saw beings unlike anything he had ever imagined. There were creatures made of living starlight, others that appeared to be formed from flowing water, and some that seemed to shift between different forms of pure energy. At the center of the gathering sat an elderly figure whose beard flowed like liquid silver and whose eyes held the wisdom of countless ages. Elder Mistral, Luna said with deep respect, "I present Damien Blackwood, who came through a portal that should not exist. Thornwick believes he may be connected to the ancient prophecy." Elder Mistral rose from his crystal throne, his gaze studying Damien with an intensity that made the billionaire feel as though every secret of his heart was being revealed. "Young man from the realm of technology and steel, do you know why you are here?" "I honestly have no idea," Damien replied truthfully. "Until a few hours ago, the most magical thing in my life was my smartphone. Now I'm standing in a crystal palace talking to beings made of light." A gentle laugh rippled through the council chamber. Elder Mistral smiled, and the warmth in his expression reminded Damien of his grandfather, the only person who had ever truly understood him. Honesty is a rare gift, especially from one who commands great power in his own realm. "Tell me, what drives you, Damien Blackwood?" The question caught Damien off guard. In business meetings, he always had prepared answers, carefully crafted, responses designed to project strength and confidence. But here, surrounded by magic and wonder, only the truth seemed appropriate. "I've spent my entire adult life building an empire, accumulating wealth and power that most people can only dream of," he said slowly. "But despite having everything money can buy, I felt empty inside, as if I was searching for something I couldn't name. When I stepped through that portal for the first time in years, I felt like I had found where I belonged." Elder Mistral nodded approvingly. "The prophecy speaks of one who would come from a realm of great abundance yet carry within his heart a hunger that material wealth cannot satisfy. It says this one would arrive when the shadow of Shadowmere grows strong enough to threaten both our worlds." At the mention of that name, Luna's face grew pale, and Zephyr ruffled his fiery feathers. In distress, Thornwick let out a low growl that made the crystal walls vibrate with harmonic resonance. "Shadowmere," Luna whispered, her voice filled with fear and anger. "He was once a guardian like me, sworn to protect the balance between light and darkness. But his heart became corrupted by jealousy and hatred. Now he seeks to merge our realm with the shadow dimension, where he would rule as supreme lord over both worlds." Elder Mistral gestured toward a large crystal sphere in the center of the chamber. As it began to glow, images formed within its depths, showing a figure cloaked in darkness standing atop a mountain of black glass. Around him swirled creatures of pure shadow, their forms shifting and writhing like living nightmares. "Shadowmere has been gathering power for decades," the elder explained. "He has learned to corrupt the very essence of our magic, turning light into darkness and hope into despair. His army of shadow creatures grows stronger each day, and soon he will have enough power to breach the barriers between dimensions." Damien stared at the images in the crystal sphere, feeling a chill run down his spine. Yet alongside the fear, he felt something else rising within him, something he had never experienced in all his years of corporate battles and business conquests. It was a sense of purpose that went beyond profit margins and stock prices. "Does the prophecy say about stopping him?" Damien asked, surprised by the determination in his own voice. "It speaks of a union between two souls from different worlds," Elder Mistral replied, his gaze moving meaningfully between Damien and Luna. "One who commands the power of creation through will and determination, and one who guards the essence of pure magic. Together, they would forge a bond strong enough to stand against any darkness."
Ow.
Luna's cheeks flushed with color that reminded Damien of rose petals at dawn. She looked at him with an expression that made his heart race faster than any business deal ever had. "The prophecy has guided my entire life," she said softly. "I trained as a guardian, learned to channel the power of the crystal realm, all in preparation for this moment. But I never imagined it would feel like this." "Like what?" Damien asked, stepping closer to her. "Like coming home," she whispered. Before either of them could say more, a creature unlike any other entered the chamber. It appeared to be made of living crystal that constantly shifted colors. Sometimes transparent, sometimes brilliant with inner light, it moved with fluid grace, its form changing from humanoid to something resembling a large cat, then to a bird-like shape. Luna called out with delight. "My oldest friend, meet Damien from the other realm," the crystal being shifted into a form that was almost human, with features that sparkled like captured rainbows. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "So this is the one the prophecy foretold. I can see why the portal opened for him. His soul carries a light that rivals the brightest stars in our realm." Damien felt overwhelmed by everything happening around him, his magic, prophecies, soul bonds, and most confusing of all, his growing feelings for Luna. In his business world, he had always been in control, always known the next move to make. Here he felt like he was navigating without a map, guided only by instincts he had never known he possessed. "There is something else you must know," Elder Mistral said, his expression growing grave. "Shadowmere has learned of your arrival. Even now, his shadow scouts search the realm for you. He knows that if the prophecy is fulfilled, his plans for conquest will fail." As if summoned by the elder's words, a darkness began to creep across the crystal walls of the chamber. The temperature dropped, and the magical lights that illuminated the palace began to flicker and dim. Through the crystal windows, they could see shapes moving in the distance, creatures of shadow flowing across the floating islands like a dark tide. "He comes," Thornwick roared, his crystal scales beginning to glow with inner fire. "Protect the chosen ones. The final battle approaches sooner than we anticipated." Luna grasped Damien's hand, and again he felt that incredible surge of energy. That seemed to connect them on a level deeper than physical touch. "Are you ready to discover the true extent of your power, Damien Blackwood? Because everything we've shown you so far is nothing compared to what you're capable of when your heart is fully awakened." Looking into her violet eyes as darkness gathered around them, Damien realized that his old life of empty wealth and meaningless achievements had been nothing more than preparation for this moment. Whatever came next, he would face it with Luna by his side, ready to discover what magic could accomplish when love and destiny combined forces. The shadow creatures were almost upon them, but for the first time in his life, Damien felt truly alive. The shadow creatures poured through the crystal palace like a dark flood, their forms writhing and shifting as they consumed the magical light that had illuminated the sacred halls for countless centuries. Damien found himself standing back with Luna, their hands still intertwined, as Elder Mistral and the Crystal Council formed a protective barrier around them. "The time for preparation has ended," Elder Mistral called out over the sound of battle. "Damien of the other realm, you must awaken the power that lies dormant within your heart. Only the union of two souls from different worlds can generate enough energy to stand against Shadowmere's darkness." As the Elder spoke, a figure materialized from the shadows, and Damien's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman who looked remarkably similar to Luna, with the same silver hair and violet eyes, but where Luna radiated warmth and light. This newcomer seemed surrounded by cool moonlight and stern determination. Sister Luna gasped, her grip on Damien's hand tightening. "Celestine, why are you here? It's too dangerous." Celestine stepped forward, her robes shimmering with protective enchantments. "I came to stop you from making the greatest mistake of your life, Luna. This human cannot be the one from the prophecy. He knows nothing of our ways, nothing of the sacrifices required to save our realm." "You're wrong," Luna replied, her voice filled with conviction that surprised even herself. "From the moment he stepped through the portal, I felt the connection the prophecy described. He may come from a different world, but his heart understands what truly matters." The argument was interrupted by a sound that made the very foundations of the Crystal Palace tremble. Through the walls came Shadowmere himself, no longer the corrupted guardian he had once been, but transformed into something far more terrifying. His form towered above them, composed of living darkness that seemed to absorb light itself. Behind him followed Nightshade, his most powerful lieutenant, a creature whose touch could turn crystal to ash and hope to despair. "So the prophecy brings me a soft businessman from the realm of metal and glass." Shadowmere's voice echoed like thunder in an empty cavern. "Did you truly believe that love alone could stand against the power I have accumulated over decades of conquest?" Damien felt fear unlike anything he had ever experienced, but alongside it burned something stronger. Looking at Luna, seeing the trust and faith in her violet eyes, he discovered reserves of courage he had never known he possessed. "You're right about one thing," Damien said, stepping forward despite every instinct telling him to run. "I am just a businessman from another world. I don't know magic or prophecies or how to fight creatures made of shadow, but I know something you've forgotten in all your years of pursuing power." "And what is that, little human?" Shadowmere sneered, raising his hand to unleash a blast of pure darkness. "I know what it feels like to be empty inside despite having everything," Damien replied. "I spent years accumulating wealth and power, thinking it would fill the void in my heart. But standing here with Luna, I finally understand what I was really searching for. You can corrupt magic and command shadow armies, but you can't create what you've never truly experienced." As he spoke, something extraordinary began to happen. The connection between Damien and Luna, already strong from their first touch, began to pulse with visible energy. Light flowed between their joined hands, not the artificial glow of his technology, or even the magical radiance of the crystal realm, but something entirely new, born from the union of two hearts that had found their perfect match. Elder Mistral's eyes widened with wonder. The Oracle of Time spoke truly. "Behold, the power that can bridge any gap between worlds, the force that makes the impossible become reality." A figure materialized in the center of the chamber, ancient beyond measure. With eyes that held the wisdom of ages and the sadness of countless endings, the Oracle of Time raised her hand, and for a moment the battle around them seemed to freeze. "Shadowmere," the Oracle spoke, her voice carrying the weight of destiny itself. "You've sought to merge the realms through force and domination. True unity can only be achieved through willing hearts that choose to become more together than they ever were apart. The light flowing between Damien and Luna intensified, spreading outward to touch every crystal surface in the palace. Where it passed, the shadow creatures began to dissolve. Not destroyed, but transformed back into the neutral energy from which all magic springs. "This is impossible," Nightshade hissed, his form beginning to waver as the transforming light reached him. "Love cannot triumph over power." "Love is power," Prism called out, his crystal form blazing with reflected light from the growing connection between the prophesied pair. "It's the power to create rather than destroy, to build bridges instead of walls, to choose hope even in the face of darkness." Shadowmere gathered his remaining strength for one final attack, but as he prepared to strike, something unexpected happened. The transforming light touched him, and for just a moment, his expression changed. The corruption and hatred faded from his features, replaced by the face of the guardian he had once been, filled with longing and regret. "I remember," he whispered, his voice human once again. "I remember what it felt like to protect instead of conquer, to love instead of possess." The Oracle of Time nodded sadly. "Every soul can choose redemption, even at the final moment. The question is whether you have the courage to let go of the power that has consumed you." Luna released Damien's hand and stepped toward her former ally. "There's still time, Shadowmere. The realm needs guardians, not conquerors. Help us rebuild what has been damaged." For a long moment, Shadowmere stood frozen between his two possible futures. Then, with a sound like a sigh that had been held for centuries, the darkness began to flow away from him, leaving behind a figure that looked surprisingly young and lost. "I choose redemption," he said simply. The battle was over, but the real challenge was just beginning. As the immediate danger passed, Damien found himself facing a choice that would determine the rest of his life. He could return to his world of technology and wealth, go back to being a billionaire who had everything except the one thing that truly mattered. Or he could stay in the crystal realm with Luna, embracing a destiny he had never imagined. "The portal remains open," Elder Mistral informed him gently. "The choice is yours, Damien Blackwood. You have fulfilled the prophecy and saved our realm. No one would blame you for returning to the life you knew." Damien looked around at the Crystal Palace, at the magical beings who had accepted him as one of their own, at the floating islands and impossible wonders that surrounded them. Then his gaze settled on Luna, whose violet eyes held all the love and hope in the universe. "I spent 32 years building an empire in the wrong world," he said, with a smile that transformed his entire face. "It's time I started building a life in the right one." Luna threw her arms around him, and as they kissed, light exploded. Outward from their embrace, carrying with it the promise of a love that could indeed conquer all realms. Celestine smiled despite herself, finally understanding what the prophecy had truly meant. Thornwick roared his approval, his crystal scales ringing like celestial bells. The Oracle of Time began to fade, her purpose fulfilled. "Remember," she said as she disappeared, "the greatest magic in any realm is the choice to love without reservation, to trust without guarantee, and to believe that two hearts united can accomplish what armies and empires never could." Light settled, and the crystal realm began to heal from the shadow war. Damien and Luna stood together on the palace balcony, looking out over their kingdom of impossible wonders. The floating islands glowed with renewed vitality. The crystal trees sang in harmonious chorus, and in the distance, creatures of pure magic danced through skies painted in colors that had no names. "So what happens now?" Damien asked, still amazed that he had chosen love over wealth and found himself richer than he had ever dreamed possible. "Now we build," Luna replied, her hand finding his with the naturalness of destiny fulfilled. "We heal what was broken, we protect what is precious, and we discover what other wonders await when two worlds choose to become one." In the realm where technology met magic, where a billionaire became a guardian and a prophecy became reality, their love story was just beginning. And somewhere between the floating islands and the crystal forests, between the phoenix songs and the dragon roars, Damien finally understood that he had never been searching for success. He had been searching for home.